I may look terrible, but just know that I'm okay. Hello everybody, my name is Dusty and welcome to my channel. The budget for this production just shot through the roof. Not really, but I'm trying harder. One of my New Year's resolutions was to practice my video editing skills and spend a little bit more time actually sitting down and editing a video to make it a proper video. Now whether that actually works is up to you guys, but for right now I'm going to give it all I have to make these videos worth watching. Unfortunately, I always look like crap, so that's something we can't change, but we can work on how well I present myself besides and beyond physical appearance. Something I said in a video a couple weeks ago was that I never asked permission before I got any of my animals, and I'm going to be completely honest, that's true in all but one case. The only time I ever asked permission to get an animal was when I got my puppy Winston, and that was because he lives with my mother, so I don't really have a choice. But I want to clear the air and say that you should never get an animal unless you have the consent of those you live with. As I break that one prime example. But don't follow me. I'm pretty sure the old saying is do as I say, not as I do. So, do as I say, not as I do. Another thing you have to consider is state laws and things like that. Things I didn't consider when I first started off. When I first started getting animals, I just bought them. And I never took into consideration state laws, local laws, or anything like that because, you know, I'm young and dumb. But now that I'm gearing up and actually filming myself and putting myself out in front of everybody, hi NSA, I think I should tell you guys and warn you guys to check state and local laws. One of the questions I get is how do I convince my parents to let me get fish? And Lowlight Aquatics and I agreed that we didn't ask when we got them. Don't do that. I don't want to speak for him, but I can tell you that it's not a good idea to just jump into something and get an animal that you're going to have to care for without your parents' consent. Now, if you're over the age of 18, well, you do what you want, but probably should check with your parents still. If you're at college or university, follow those rules and regulations. Sometimes there are obstacles in your way that you just cannot go around. I have to enforce the policies at my university, and maybe there's a policy you don't know or understand. I get that all the time. Sometimes it's not written in stone, so there are some gray areas to that. So make sure you check with your local authorities, including RAs and parents, before you jump in and get an animal. But back to the question, how do you convince them to let you get the animal that you want? Well, the main thing I recommend is educating yourself. And when I mean educating yourself, proving that you know how to care for that animal. When I got my bearded dragon, Liz, all I had to do was take my parents to Reptile Expo and talk about every single animal there until they finally broke and told me I can get one. Of course, before I got Liz, I wanted a Pac-Man frog. My dad said, you know what, get something you can interact with. A Pac-Man frog just kind of sits there. So where's my bearded dragon now? Well, it lives with my parents, and my dad cares for it. Because college. But it's just a prime example of making sure your parents know what's happening, because if something like that does happen, you have that backup plan, somebody to care for the animal if you can't. Every single animal I own has a backup plan, so if I can't take care of it, somebody can somewhere for me. I do that because you never know when the unexpected happens, and if it does, you don't want to be stuck in the middle of nowhere with no one to care for the animal. That's a part of educating yourself. Educate yourself on who can take care of it, educate others, and show that you know what you're doing. Another part to that is preparation. You have to be prepared. If you can show that you're prepared and you can care for the animal, more likely or not, your parents or whoever's watching over you will let you get that animal. If you go to reptile conventions, per se, and you don't have a tank or anything for it, that's just another excuse on why you can't get something. With preparations, get a job. Why is getting a job important? Well, you have to be able to provide for that animal. There's no point in getting an animal if you're going to have to give it up the next day because you can't afford to pay for the meals it needs, or the water it needs, or the light bulb it needs, or the heater it needs. The list goes on and on and on. And when it comes to fish, the filter, the heater, making sure that you can afford the filter cartridges, make sure that you can afford the chemicals like the water conditioner and the ammonia remover and the food and everything else. There's a large thing that kind of exists that you don't think about until you already have the animal. But if you have all those things already planned out and own all those things, there's no excuse on why you can't get the animal. And again, I think it's all situational. It depends on who you are and what you do and who your parents are and what they believe and the other animals you already have. It has a lot of different components to it. So there's no way of saying this one thing is going to work forever or that one thing is always going to work. It doesn't. And I can't tell you how to convince your parents to get an animal. But what I'm telling you can help increase the odds that they will say yes. Hopefully. If your parents are anything like mine, they'll probably cave in after spending an hour and a half with them, walking around a reptile convention, talking about things that they don't quite necessarily understand. Or in the case of how I got my dog, I told my dad I was getting a corgi, he said yes, and then I brought home a dachshund. Don't recommend that, but, I mean, it happened. At the end of the day, it's up to you what you do to get your dog or animal, but make sure you can care for it, make sure that your parents are on board, make sure you have things in place to help care for that animal. The animal didn't ask to come home with you, you asked it to come home with you, so you have to be able to provide for it, and if you can't, maybe that's something to wait for until you move out and can provide for yourself. So if these tips helped you, make sure you leave this video a thumbs up, make sure you subscribe, make sure you comment down below what you did to get your animal, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.